What's up, Internet? It's Matt at Overkill Woodcraft, and today is essentially the second part of a two-part video where I show you how I mill up logs using some of Granberg's equipment. If you saw the first video or the first part, I used Granberg's easy rails to go ahead and make my first cut and get this nice smooth top that you see behind me. And in today's video, I'm going to go ahead and use their Alaskan winch on my Alaskan Chainsaw Mill to assist me with getting through this hickory, because like I mentioned, it's a little bit longer, it's hickory, so it's obviously going to be a little more difficult to get through, especially in situations where you're not like milling downhill and you don't have gravity working for you. So what I'm going to do first is just go over some of the components of their Alaskan winch, and then I'll go over setting it up, and then I'll demonstrate how to use it to rip through a log and get fantastic results. So stick around and we'll get to it. So on this Alaskan winch, there really isn't much to it. You've got the spool, the winch itself, and that's just bolted down with some carriage bolts. You've got your lever here for turning, and this knob keeps the tension tightened down, and it's just, you can just use finger tension for that. So it's great when you're not using it. You just go ahead, tighten it down, and it'll stay in place. And then you can keep this on your Alaskan mill basically all the time. So I never take it off. Just wrap this around here, or I just leave it dangling. Honestly, it's never been an issue, and I don't ever see it being an issue. And that's essentially all there is to it as far as what attaches to the chainsaw mill. And the other thing worth mentioning is I believe this spool comes with about 38 feet of this nylon threaded rope, so plenty to get the job done. The other main component of the system is your lever arm, and it's got a couple of different items on here that I'll go over once I've actually attached it to the end of the log, which is really simple to do. You can use 2 screws or 4 screws and just attach it to the end. And like I said, I'll get into that right now. So when attaching this lever arm, I obviously want to attach it as low to the log as possible, so that way I can make as many passes using the winch as possible. So I'm really just going to eyeball this. Obviously I want it as centered as possible, and ideally, it's not leaning one way or the other. So I'll just eyeball it right here. I like how that looks. Or if you don't have a magnetic drill bit, like I don't in this instance, you can just go ahead and start one corner. And now once I've got it to where I want it, I will just go catty corner here. And that looks pretty good. And because I'm going to be making quite a few passes with this, I'll just go ahead and put all 4 screws in. So right here you've got your receiver for the carabiner that is attached to the chainsaw mill, and that can be adjusted or lowered pretty easily just by this knob. Ideally you want it a little bit higher than your log. I mean, you can have it higher up if you maybe want some upward pressure, or even a little bit lower if you want some downward pressure for whatever reason. But I usually just keep mine a tad bit higher than, and that kind of factors in the height of the rails for the chainsaw mill. And so then when the carabiner attaches, it's usually about level with everything. So now this ball down here, this will just allow you to keep the lever arm closer to the log or further away from the log. I really don't see the need to keep it super close when I use it, so I try to keep it as far away as possible. It will help if you decide to make your exit cut with everything still attached, which I don't do, but I just like having a little bit of extra space here. So next, what I'm going to do is go ahead and kind of unspool the winch and my rope. I'll get it hooked up to this, and then we'll run through a cut. However, before I go ahead and run through that cut, I just wanted to stress the importance of having a clean chain. So if you saw my video yesterday, I only made 3 first cuts, and then I cut through the smaller log with this chain. It was completely cleaned and sharpened, and you can see now, I mean, this thing is filthy. So, it's just one of the side effects of cutting through green wood. Pros and cons to everything, I suppose, but yeah, this is completely filthy. Definitely don't want to be using this right now, especially for longer cuts. So you can see the fresh chain that I got on there right now. It's much cleaner. So that's kind of one of the drawbacks to chainsaw milling I found, is that I'm constantly cleaning chains. So just something to keep in mind. Always good, especially for operations like This log, for example, I'll probably only get through it with the 4 or 5, maybe 6 passes before I need to clean my chain. A couple things too, when you're milling through here, you're going to want to support your power head a little bit more. It's different than when you're just using the chainsaw mill by itself. You're usually able to just kind of apply that kind of counterbalanced pressure here when you're gripping the handle. But with this, you're going to be spinning this lever around. So it's kind of just helpful to keep your power head balanced, all right? And try to keep your rails completely, you know, leveled and flush on the log. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen that knob that I was talking about, that tension knob. Then I'm going to go ahead and run my string out with my carabiner. I'm going to go ahead and hook it up to that receiver. And if I had to say there was anything awkward about this using this winch, it is starting your chainsaw with it hooked up. You don't have to start it with it hooked up. You could simply, you know, make your cut and allow your, you know, chainsaw mill to kind of just rest in there, shut off your chainsaw, and then go ahead and attach this. But this is just kind of the method I prefer. That way I'm not having to start and stop any more than necessary. So I'm going to bring this back and give myself a little bit of slack here, okay? And go ahead and start it up and run through it. So because it would be difficult to talk into my microphone while I'm doing this to explain exactly what I'm doing, I'm going to end up pausing the cut here in just a second and show you what was going on here. But the main thing is you're going to notice that I'm losing tension in my winch rope at first, and that's on purpose because of how I'm making my entrance cut. Okay, so I went ahead and paused it here just to show you that the reason why I didn't use this winch at first and why I don't use it at first is because when I'm coming in, regardless of if I have the winch on or not, when I'm coming in with my Alaskan mill, I like to come in at an angle and ride this crossbar on the flat surface until I get to this back bar on my mill. And then that way I know that I'm, you know, completely parallel with my cut, and, you know, I'm not going to be making like a, I don't know, just a out of whack cut or however you'd want to describe that. So now that I'm here, I'll go ahead and resume, and then I'll take over with using the winch. So now that I have both of those bars resting on top of the log, I'll go ahead and let my saw get sucked into the log again and make sure that I'm adding kind of some upward pressure or support, if you will, on that power head. And this is the part that takes a little bit of getting used to at first, depending, you know, on the type of wood that you're milling, is your feed rate. How quickly you are turning that winch lever, you know, because if you're turning it too quick, you're probably going to bog your saw down. And if you're turning it too slow, you're just going to end up revving out. And so, you know, obviously with a little bit of practice, you know, on this first cut, you'll figure it out in no time. So then I'll quickly go ahead and put my first set of wedges in here. And it's important with this, and I mean, even if you're not using the winch, if you're making your first cut or just, you know, milling your second or third slab, to go ahead and whenever you pause, make sure you ease in on the throttle when you're, you know, going back into that cut, or you'll definitely notice that you didn't ease into it when you take this, you know, slab off and you see the results underneath. It'll be a lot more rough. So once I get about another foot further down here, I won't even stop my chainsaw. I'll just go ahead and disconnect my carabiner real quick, reel it back in, and then that way I don't have to worry about potentially hitting my lever arm when I go to make my exit. Time for my favorite part. I get to pop this open, see what's inside. Oh, well, hello there. So yeah, this is pretty smooth for chainsaw milled lumber. I mean, there's a couple of maybe bumpy spots, but that's probably just from when I was starting and stopping for the filming of everything. Still really happy with all of this. I mean, for chainsaw milled lumber, I can't really see it getting any better. So, all right, so there you have it, the Granberg Alaskan Winch. I think it's a pretty cool system, and while I don't feel like there's a ton of wear and tear on the body just from using the chainsaw mill by itself, I do feel like that winch will definitely reduce some of it. You know, you won't be feeling things as much the next day if you've got a lot of cuts to make. So, you know, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's not some huge learning curve or anything like that. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.